Hello friends, James Stevenson and Loki back with another video comparing Ford and GM revenue, unit sales, and earnings a couple of different ways against Tesla. And I am joined as always by my co-host Loki. This is also an episode of Breakfast with Loki, so let me grab Loki's breakfast for him. That's right, buddy. Yes. Yes, there you go. Come on down, buddy. I got it on the floor for you here, okay? You ready to eat? Okay, we'll see if he eats. I just present him with the food, and then he eats when he feels like eating. All right, Tesla reported their earnings in late January, and then a week later, General Motors reported their earnings, and then a week after that, Ford reported their earnings. So we have all the numbers now, and we can compare them against each other, as I did a year ago. I updated those charts this year and sent them out in a tweet, and lo and behold, Elon Musk liked a tweet from James Stevenson. Here is that tweet. Ford versus GM versus Tesla in 4 charts. This is also the kind of chart that I used for my video that I made about how to create compelling charts in Excel. Jason Calacanis had put out the question on Twitter, hey, how do you guys make good-looking charts that actually look good? Do you use Excel or do you use something else? And I do use Flourish sometimes, but most of my charts are made in Excel, just like these. But Excel doesn't always make it easy on you. Trying to make exactly the visualization you have in mind, sometimes you have to use some tricks to get there. So what do we have here? Units sold, revenue, net income, and then profit per vehicle sold. So these last two are 2 different ways of looking at how much profit these companies are making. The first one is just nominal dollar terms. Hey, how many dollars are we talking about? Let's compare that. And the next one is put that on a per vehicle sold basis so that you can tell more about the profitability of the company and maybe what their potential is for the future. So which one of these do investors care the most about? Earnings growth. Earnings growth is what you're paying for when you buy a stock. You want to buy a stock that has earnings growth potential. If the company you're buying stock in isn't growing their earnings, maybe buy something else. Maybe buy a company that is growing earnings. That's probably going to have a better return for you. Okay, so what do we have here? I hate that that's not quite fitting the page very well. I can't really understand why that's not fitting the page very well. Let me try zooming out some and see if that fixes the problem. It still doesn't fix the problem. All right, I'll just make the window smaller. And that doesn't fix it either. What? Okay, so what I'm going to do is just go to the Excel itself and show you that. I've got that behind here. So if I dispense with the Excel, you can see the data tables upon which these charts are based. Let me zoom in here some more for, well, I'm going to scroll down the page actually after I do this. So this, all you need to know here is these are the unit sales or the vehicles delivered, and you've got those by year for Ford, for GM, and for Tesla. So these are the annual number of vehicles sold in thousands. So Ford declined from 6.7 million to 4.2 million over the last 6 years. GM declined from 6.2 million to 3.6 million over the past 6 years. Now, they've been cutting sedans like crazy. Both of these companies had the same strategy. Hey, we make a bunch of money selling pickups and SUVs. We don't make that much money selling sedans because it's hard to compete against Toyota and Honda and, Kia because they make really affordable sedans, and it's hard for Ford and GM to compete on price and still have any profit left over, so they just stopped selling most of their sedans. And that's what accounts for most of this drop-off. They'll talk about in their earnings letter how well they're doing selling pickups. We have the #1 selling pickup. All right, great. So those are the units. Here's what Tesla's done over that time period. Up from 0.1 million vehicles, that's what 76,000 rounds to over 1.3 million vehicles. So way up, which you can see over here. If it's a red number, that means it's a decline year over year. So you see that's mostly what happened for Ford and GM. Every single year since 2016 until it went so low during the pandemic in 2020, and then 2021 was another really bad year with chip shortages, I guess. But they couldn't help but beat these terrible years in 2022. So they were happy to report, after a very long drought, that they had increased their unit sales. And you'll see what that looks like on the chart in a minute. Tesla has increased its sales every single year, pandemic or not, chip shortage or not. Tesla's unit sales have been increasing every year. And then over here you've got those as percentages. So in percentage terms versus the prior year, how are you doing? And then below that, I put a total change 2016 to 2022 line. So this is telling you, hey, Ford is down 2.4 million vehicles per year from where they were in 2016 for total global unit deliveries. GM is down more than that, down 2.7 million. So that's an even bigger decline in percentage terms. 43% down for GM, 36% down for Ford. How much is Tesla up? They're up 1.2 million from a base of 0.1 million. So that is a 1,631% increase for Tesla over the same time period from admittedly a very low base. So those are the numbers for units. Then right below that, you have the same exact format, except the metric being shown here is revenue. Total top line sales for these companies. So Ford, over 150 billion back in 2016. GM almost at 150 billion. And then GM did worse every year since until this year. 2022 is the first year they've gone above 150 billion. Ford had a few years above 150 billion and a few really bad years, 2020 and 2021, where they were below that. And now they're back to almost a record. Their revenue was actually higher in 2018 than it was in 2022. But they got pretty close to an all-time record for top-line sales. That's what you see here. The total change from 2016 to 2022. Last year, these were negative numbers because these numbers were both less than these numbers. But they are up. They're up 4% over the past 6 years, Ford is. GM's up 5% on revenue over the past 6 years, and Tesla is up 1,064%. So even though the average selling price is way down from when Tesla was selling mostly Model S and Model X, now they sell mostly Model Y and Model 3, still up over 1,000% on revenue over the past 6 years. Pretty good. What other metrics do I have on here? Well, I've got net income next. You can see that here. So this number jumps around quite a bit more than the units or the revenue did. You'll see these go from big numbers to small numbers to negative numbers for Ford. They just reported another loss in 2022, almost a $2 billion loss for Ford. That's actually more. Ford lost more money in 2022 than Tesla lost in any year from 2016 through 2019 when Tesla was reporting losses. That's kind of an interesting way to look at it. GM had a bigger loss than that. $3.9 billion back in 2017. They've been doing better since, so between 5 and 10 billion every year since 2017. Here's Tesla. Tesla was at a negative zero point 0.7 billion net income back in 2016. That got really bad in 2017, almost a $2 billion loss. Then that got trimmed to only a $1 billion loss in 2018. A $0.9 billion loss almost in 2019, and then it turned to profits. In 2020, which was a tough year for automakers, Tesla reported $721 million worth of profit, or 0.7 billion worth of profit. Then in 2021, that rose steeply, sharply to $5.5 billion worth of profits. That's pretty good. And then 12.5 billion in 2022, the most on the page, unless you count Ford in 2021. Why wouldn't you count them? Because 9.1 billion of their 17.9 billion was related to the IPO of Rivian and a gain on Argo AI, or the net of those two things was 9.1 billion that year. So really, Tesla, from a core automotive operations standpoint, is a lot more profitable already, despite half the revenue, generating half as much top-line sales as Ford and GM do. Tesla is already producing more earnings, more GAAP net income is what this number shows. Then we've got profit per vehicle sold below that. So this is just doing the math between these two. It's saying, hey, if you take the net income and you divide it by the number of units sold, how much profit is that per vehicle you sold? What's your average profit per vehicle? Less than $1,000 most years for Ford. They had a really good year in 2021, again, for that reason I just mentioned, the Rivian IPO. They had a good year in 2017 with a little over $1,000 worth of profit. That's a good year for Ford. If they can generate more than $1,000 worth of profit, they're happy. 2 out of the past 3 years, they've had negative profit per vehicle sold. Then for GM, yeah, they're normally less than $2,000 profit per vehicle. They have managed to beat that the past couple of years with $3,400 and $2,500 worth of profit here. What's Tesla been doing? Well, these were really large losses per vehicle sold in 2016, 2017, 2018, and 2019, but then it flipped to positive, $1,400. That's comparable to what GM makes most of the time. Then in 2021, that rose to $5,900 per vehicle, which is more than Ford or GM have averaged in any of the last 7 years. I keep calling it 6 years, but it's 7 years. You take 2022 minus 2016, you get 6, but there's 7 years if you count inclusively. And then what about 2022? Almost 10 grand of profit per vehicle for Tesla in 2022. So that's what this looks like, and you've got the comparisons over here. So let's look at those on charts and see what those look like. I've been teasing that for a while now. This is the global deliveries chart. So Ford used to sell more than 6 million vehicles per year, and GM sold more than 6 million vehicles in 2016. They haven't been selling that many since, as they got away from selling sedans. The number of total global deliveries has been falling for Ford and for GM. For Tesla, this number's been rising every single year. Tesla sells more cars than they sold the year before. So you can see what these trends look like. And just to give you a little peek behind the curtain, these are 3 different charts that I've lined up side by side by side, so that you can tell what the comparison looks like on the same scale. They're all presented on the same scale. Then for revenue, here's what Ford and GM revenue have looked like over the past 7 years. They have recently regained the revenue that they had years ago after a couple of really tough years in 2020 and 2021. What's Tesla been doing? Rising, 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 and rising some more. So a really positive trend here for Tesla, up and to the right. Ford and GM have been down or flat if you look at the last 7 years. That's not what you want your business to be doing. Then I've got a chart here for net income dollars. Here's what those look like. So Ford and GM, usually positive, usually, 5 billion per year worth of net income, GAAP net income. GM a little higher than that on average. Tesla used to lose money and doesn't lose money anymore. This trend is extremely bullish for Tesla. If this, $7 billion per year worth of GAAP net income sustains, they're going to be making Ford and GM look really foolish really soon. And if we look at that profit on a per vehicle basis, here's what that chart looks like. And with that, I think I've gotten to the end of my video, so we'll check back in with Loki and see how he's doing. He decided not to eat his breakfast. That's okay. He'll eat it later. And with that, I will say, if you've enjoyed today's video, click the like button. If you're not subscribed to my channel already, don't forget to subscribe to my channel over here and click the notification bell to get alerted whenever I post fresh content. Thanks to anyone who supports me through Patreon or by joining my YouTube channel as a member, especially my two executive producers, Kathy Kitchler and Halter Ferguson Financial, and I will see you in the next one.